Thank you.
All you, Bonnie.
Good morning. Welcome to day 2, our track 2 ability on the Build Your Consulting Business Now Summit. And just a little bit of housekeeping. At the top of the hour, we're going to be playing, I believe, The Shining Star. So that will get us going. And then after about 45 minutes, we will take a break, a personal break. And but before that, make sure to turn off your cell phone and really focus in on this session because it's going to be really juicy. If you focus in, you'll remember things better. You can take notes. And it'll really be valuable to you to do this. So take a deep breath, open your mind and heart to what we're about to learn. So I want to welcome, first off, Becky Norwood. And I'm really excited about this, talking with Becky. She is a CEO and a book publishing expert. And her company is Spotlight Publishing. And she helps authors. She's a #1 international best-selling author herself, and she helps others do the same. She is a book publishing expert, and we're going to find out more why that is so important for your business. I love this about Becky. She's the story whisperer. And how cool is that, to be a story whisperer? And she's helped over 350 authors come to the #1 seller. That's pretty impressive. And she offers extensive catalog of services to help you get there. And what I really love is she helps emerging authors. You can be an author yourself already, but she particularly, I believe, enjoys budding authors. And with that, I'd like to just welcome you, Becky, and really look forward to hearing what you have to say. And we'll, if there's any questions from all of you, please forward them and we can ask Becky. This is an interview. So Becky, just tell us a little bit about you. Just a moment ago, I was hearing where you were from. That was pretty amazing. You had many generations in Los Angeles, and your story is then your family ended up in Oregon. And so that's a pretty cool story right there.
Well, I've lived a number of places. Thank you, Bonnie, for having me and for this whole webinar series that's going on. There's so much that all of us can learn, and there's such an art to being able to launch our businesses successfully. And it's a real privilege to be here. Thank you. So I am a grandma to 10, and I have a blended family of 5 adult kids, and been married to my husband for about 14 years almost. This month, this will be 14 years. So we're just really in a journey of realizing that everyone has a story, and the stories are so vital that we share our stories in a way, no matter what kind of book we're writing, that we weave storytelling into what we're writing. And that's kind of the fiber of becoming that story whisperer that I spoke about. So the fun of what I do is that it starts with a conversation. Why are you wanting to publish a book? Usually, they come to me, I've got this manuscript that I'm working on. And so we have that initial conversation of, what's your big why? Are you willing to do what it takes to bring that book not only to become, I can perfectly get them to #1 bestseller, because I have the strategies, the tools, and after 350 authors, I know my stuff. But the question is, what are you going to do with this book? How are you going to use this book as a tool for business growth? And then the next question is, who? Who are you writing this book for? Who's the ideal audience? It's not everyone. It is absolutely not everyone that you're writing your book for. You need to know exactly who. And even if you boil it down to that one person, you will reach the many by being able to speak to the one. So there's kind of there's a real interesting blend of being able to take the stories, because I have this quote that I really like that it's called, life is like photography we develop from the negatives.
That's beautiful.
And all of us, there's not one of us that have lived on this earth that don't have a story, that something that rocked our world and we had to dig ourselves out of it and learn to grow, learn to thrive, and learn to be the leaders that our world so sorely needs right now.
Mhm.
And so that is kind of the fiber of where we start when I start working with an author. And we look at it very, very closely as what kind of stories are you sharing and how can you take words and craft them into something that will reach the hearts of those that need to hear the story. And so it's
Yeah.
really fun.
Um, I bet you almost have to be part psychologist to work with people, because I'm sure as they're telling their stories, other things may come up for them. Is that something that happens?
Yes, and my backstory is I came up in a really, really abusive household as a child. And as I grew into an adulthood, I didn't know what normal, what kind of, I was used to that kind of stuff and attracted all the same things into my life. And the the story behind it, my first book that I wrote is called The Woman I Love. And it was, the whole thing is that I had to learn to love myself before anybody, I could truly be loved by somebody that would honor me and have a wonderful relationship. And it was quite a journey. But what I realized in the writing is there's so much healing in the writing, and really understanding what it is that um, truly happened in your life and putting it all into place, but then being able to, with art and skill, with the word use of words, be able to share the story, not in a poor me, look what happened to me, but this is what I did to heal from it. This is where I've come. So you have to share the story because that's connecting
Yes.
piece. And what I see, when we didn't have COVID and we would go out to eat, you would see entire families sitting around the table and they're all on their devices. They're not
Yeah.
talking. They're not talking to each other. They're not sharing stories. And then I've been watching a series on PBS called Finding Your Roots. And that is the most fascinating thing. And it's what fascinates me the most is the art of storytelling has been lost by so many, many,
Mm.
many generations of people from all nationalities don't know what happened past maybe their parents' generation. They
Yes,
don't
I've heard
know
it's two
the
generations and it's
it's
all
gone.
gone. Yeah.
So why do the repeating of history is because we're not telling stories. We're
Mm.
not sharing our stories in a way that will be the connecting fiber. And storytelling has been with us since the beginning of time. You know, it's the stories that pass it from generation that help our young people become the leaders that they're supposed to be. But if we're not talking and we're not sharing those stories and not using it, no matter what business we are in, our marketing, our our whether it's our blogs, our podcasts, everything needs a story. Everything
Mhm.
needs the story because that's the connecting fiber of what we're bringing to the world.
Often quote is, you need to know, like, and trust someone to do business. And tell me a little bit more about how, if someone were to write a book and tell their story, how do you find that that helps that business?
You know, I think people today in today's world, we all need connectivity. And when you realize, so maybe you're a coach, maybe you are an expert, a LinkedIn expert, maybe you teach some amazing stuff of speaking with confidence and selling from the stage. But if you can connect them to get them drawn in by sharing the stories, then it transforms them. They begin to see that you're real, you're human, you've gone through your stuff too, and look what you've done with that. You've used that as the stepping stone to be excelling and being all that you need to be in who you are. And the other part of it is that with storytelling, if we use it in a way that is not the poor me kind of story where it's wah 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 wah, I mean, I mean that kindly, but you want to make it to where you share the pieces of the story. For instance, I have one of my stories that I've just developed is I heard a story about a herd of elephants that were, I mean, these were big, you know how big elephants are, they're huge, but they were just standing in this big group at this event and watching them. All they had was a little tiny rope at their ankle, and yet they weren't trying to escape. And it was very puzzling to see why was this happening.
Right.
Well, so as the story goes, asked the trainer, well, why aren't these elephants just taking off? I mean, that rope isn't going to hold them. He says, because when they were babies, that rope was sufficient to hold them. And they got used to it. They couldn't escape then. So as they grew up, they felt like they couldn't escape now. And so they were conditioned. Well, that's the same thing is being able to take that story, that type of story, and realizing that even for me, when I read that, it really struck me of how the stories of my past had held me back and what I needed to do to move forward and live and thrive and be happy in my own life. And then being able to see how storytelling can connect us to each other and make all the difference in the world to really be able to the power is to be able to understand our story and how it can be a connecting force for those that will be attracted to us and want to do business with us.
Mhm. Do you find that many people want to write a story, but something stops them from moving forward? And what is that stopping point for people?
Stopping point is shame, guilt, fear that nobody wants to hear it, shame, we don't want to talk about those things. We like to keep them covered up. The fear that we'll be judged, but actually quite the opposite happens, you know. And so the kind of the weaving of the storytelling, but in putting together a book that showcases your expertise, which is the whole idea of being here today and growing our businesses, is that there's so many things that we can do to be really successful when we publish a book that showcases our expertise and we've woven story into it, but doing that in a skillful way. Because I always tell my authors, from the moment you begin putting pen to paper or tapping those keys, that's when your marketing begins.
Mm.
Because it's not going to happen by magic. It's not going to build it and they will come, because this is a noisy, busy world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So you start building your social media, you start branding yourself across your social media platforms, you start getting yourself on podcasts. In your social media, you start talking about what you're doing. I'm writing a book, this is what it's about. As you get your chapters written, start reading those chapters. And one thing you will find, if you're reading a chapter of your book online in social media, you'll get a lot of connectivity. People get engrossed in it. They want to know more. But also, as you read it aloud, it puts things in such perspective, and you find, well, I didn't explain that very well. Because when we write, sometimes that connectivity between the hand, the
Isn't
typing,
that
and
the
the
truth?
hand, you're like, what did I think? What was I thinking? But when you start reading it aloud, and I encourage every one of my authors to read every single chapter aloud, whether they do it online or they do it within the comfort of their own home. Read it aloud, because you will begin to see where the holes and the gaps are. Do that well before you send it to an editor to be edited, but do that, because then you see where the connecting pieces are missing. You see where maybe you could explain something a little bit better, go into more depth, maybe take something out. So those are all pieces of what's really important.
I think everyone just stop right now and write that tip down. That has been such a helper for me. Even writing an email, to read it out loud. Suddenly you go, oh, That
He's
doesn't
like,
sound right.
what was I
What was I
thinking?
thinking? uh, I find that my husband and I do that for each other, and he'll say, "Well, check this note or email or whatever down," and we'll read it out loud, and suddenly it's just like such an aha. So definitely that is an excellent tip right there to make sure whatever you're writing to someone, because the slip of a key or a slip of a little word can mean a totally different context. So that's a
Right.
really, really good one. What other advice or tips would you give someone that's just starting off writing and they're kind of like, what do I write? What kind of process do you do with authors to guide them through this?
That's a very good question. Um, for some authors, I work with them to understand, what's their what what things do they do that is going to resonate with them. For some, it's writing an outline. This is what's going to be in my book. For other, it's a mind map. This is, here's the center. This is what I'm doing, but this needs to go in this chapter. This needs to go in this chapter, and the thoughts. For one of my authors, he had a big white wall behind him, and I said, okay, because he wasn't getting it done. He's a doctor. He's busy. We're just not getting it done. So I said, look at that big wall. So I said, you have sticky notes. You can go get sticky notes. His book was going to be 12 chapters, and each chapter would lead into another book. And it's on the 12th. The systems of the body is how he was going to do. So I said, okay, put all your thoughts as you start writing for chapter 1, chapter 2, divide that up into, with your sticky notes. Every time you get a thought, put your sticky note for chapter 1, chapter 2, because you're writing those 12 chapters are going to be 12 books. Put a box at the bottom or file caddy, so that all your other connecting materials, your supporting materials, can go in those boxes. So then you have it together.
Right.
Some of my authors are terrible writers, and so I have them speak their books.
Oh,
And I think we live in amazing times because of the things the tool sets that we have to be able to do that. We have the whole Microsoft Office suite where you just push the button and it says dictate, and it starts typing everything that you're speaking.
right.
Does it have to be edited? Absolutely, it needs to, but it gets your thoughts onto paper. I had a gentleman that he's been very ill for a lot of years, and so his funds are very low, but he really has a story he wants to get out, and he decided maybe somebody should help ghostwrite. Well, ghostwriters are very expensive, and if you have the funds, it's perfect. But he doesn't have the funds. So I said, okay, you have the time because you're not working. You have the ability. Go to the Office suite. You can do this with Google Docs as well. Push the dictate and start talking. And he talks all the time. He's very good at speaking. So and now he's doing that because the ghostwriter wanted 15,000 right out the gate.
Yes.
And while I believe ghostwriters have their place, for some of us, we don't. Those kind of funds are not, at our fingertips, and that would keep him from telling his story.
Right. Right.
You
Now,
know.
the point of pricing is really interesting. Often, well, our new way of being is we're not traveling to big events. We're not spending lots of dollars there. It sounds as if writing a book would be a very good investment
You know.
because you can have it online, and as you said, reading it. And so when people talk about funds for their business, writing a book or getting those thoughts down in an orderly manner, as you help them do, can come out in many different ways. As you said, chapter by chapter, or tell us all the ways that you see once you write that book, all the ways that you help them get that information out there.
It's one of the most important pieces to it, because the marketing is probably the the main key to success, because so many books are being published today. And you can have it on every platform out there, but if you're not talking about it, you're not pushing it out there, you're not marketing, you're not using it as a tool for business growth,
Mhm.
then why are you doing this? That's how I feel. So
Mhm.
we have a lot of conversation. What I do differently from a lot of publishers is we look at this book and I ask them, do you have a course that you've created? Are you
Mhm.
a podcaster? What tool sets do you have, and which tool sets should you start looking at so that you can get your book out there in the most powerful of ways? Um, in the pages of the book I have them create videos, and we take those videos,
Mhm.
put them on YouTube, put the link into a QR code. And so as somebody gets their book and opens the pages to the book and starts reading, there's a QR code. Just take a picture of it with your phone and you come to life speaking. What does that do? That forms that connecting, because then they get to know you in a whole different way other than the written word.
Mhm.
Um, we use we always look for areas where we can opt in. Can you offer them 10 free tips? But to get those 10 free tips, they have to follow that link. They have to put their name and their email in, and then give them the 10 free tips. But then that's what brings it to, um, so they're forming a following of
Mhm.
people. But each chapter can be used in so many beautiful ways. And I encourage my authors to seek out podcast opportunities. I encourage them to very active in social media, form a Facebook page for their book, form a Facebook group in conjunction with that. So the bulk of people will get attracted through the page, but go deeper and teach a mastermind, go deeper and teach, you know, extra little things that in your area of expertise that. And so if you're involving people, even in the cover design, I encourage my authors to, which cover looks best, and have 4 or 5 different designs. Which cover is going to look best for this? And put it on social media. Ask the question. Let them vote. Those are the things that you'd be amazed how people support that. Because truly, even though there's a lot of people publishing today, if you live in a busy metropolitan area and drive the freeways, millions of people drive the freeways. How many of them are authors? So we're still a rare breed. We're still, for those of us, I would say, I've read a statistic recently. They said 95% of people say they want to write a book. How many
I've
actually
heard
do
that.
it? How many actually do it?
Curious about that. That's such a great point of saying, "Oh yeah, I'll get the." My grandfather said the round to it, and it was a little round coin with said "to it" on it. Here's a round to it, and so what I think I know, what I've known is I've written a book myself, and it was within a certain time frame, and I wanted to ask you about that. They did this to encourage me to write the book and keep moving, and I had a friend that wrote a book, and he inspired me, and he was brain injured, and he said, I wrote a book, and I said, you wrote a book, and I said, how'd you do that? He said, I took a class. And then he said it was how to write a book in, I don't know, 90 days. And he said, but it took me 2 years because I was brain injured. But he,
Brain injured or not, we're busy.
he did it. He typed with one finger. But when you're encouraging people to go ahead and spill their guts, do the story, do you do it within a timeline, or do you just let them go along at their pace? What's your experience with that?
I encourage a timeline because but I would say connected, and I'll send out, hey, how are you doing on this, and let's have another Zoom meeting, see where you are with this. And a lot of times it's that many tool sets available to us today. I always say treat your book like it is a business. Treat it as a tool for business growth. Treat it like it's something that is wisdom share all the things that really can make a difference to people. No, it's kind of like a very expensive business card. I call it it's the calling card.
Yes. I've heard that it's the new business card is
Right.
to have a book. And especially what you help them do, which is it's nice to write a book, but it's even better to have it as a #1 seller and being visible.
Well,
And you
and
help
I
people with that.
I do, and that's where I truly shine. And in fact, I had
Mm,
a famous cardiologist that we did a book launch for last week, and his is on, of course, on um, healing your inner therapist, because he feels that his patients that come with heart failure issues, there's something deeper in the emotional realm and the stuff that's happened in their lives that's all interconnected. But with his book launch, wow, it was amazing because all for 2 days solid, we had the whole his whole staff on talking about the patients they work with. He had cardiologists from all over the world that were on his staff. He had kidney disease experts because they feel the heart and the kidney, all the organ systems of the body go together. And it was truly amazing. And he became a #1 international bestseller. But the other part of it is today I have a book launch, and it's a children's book, Mystic and Boys, and um, visit the reindeer stables, for the holidays. And so I have the fun of being able to work with my authors in I the stories, the people that come with me to me with their books. Now, in the case of this children's book, I didn't have her write story, other than the story for the children, because she did another one. Last year's book was Mystic and Boys and Go to the Dentist, and it's all about learning how to take care of and Poison is a dinosaur, so lots of fun. But I do my publishing in kind of a different way. I use Amazon because Amazon's a major search engine.
mhm,
Um, I can get 10 categories instead of just 2 or 3 that most people think they can get. We
mhm,
do a lot of making sure that they know how to build their own launch team. So these are the people
mm,
that know, love, and trust them, to make sure that they're getting the support of their launch team. I teach them how to get endorsements for their book, and endorsements come from experts in their line of their field.
mhm,
And so there's a lot of moving pieces to making this work and to make it successful. I teach them how to put the marketing into place in the background so that they're using those videos, turning them into podcasts, getting invited to podcast shows, getting themselves on summits like this, that they're using it speaking from the stage, because they will make far more money selling their books from the stage. And our stage right now is a webinar like this in Zoom. Um, they'll make more money that way than they will be selling online. But the online sellers like Amazon, Ingram Spark, Draft to Digital, those are the ones I use. They each serves their purpose, but they do their marketing, and they take their a portion of the royalties. So there's just many moving parts. For instance, my doctor that we just published his book, he says, so now what do I do? and but I said, well, you have all these doctors that have supported you, and many medical universities supporting you. Have you gone to them and say, offer them a special pricing so that the books, they can buy in bulk? They can do this. There's methods of taking any type of book that's written and getting it into the major corporations,
mhm.
so there's a lot of tools, but social media has been a very valuable tool. I publish on Amazon, then I publish on Ingram Spark, because Ingram gets it into the catalogs for the
Ah,
bookstores and libraries. And so you can go to walmart.com and you'll see your book there on walmart.com, on barnesandnobles.com. When you do it on Amazon, it doesn't happen. So we take it also to Ingram Spark. Then Draft to Digital is for the digital portion of that, like the Kindle on Amazon.
yeah.
This gets it into all the other bookstore readers for those that like to read it right off of their device,
That's important, I think, because um, I did mine just a hard copy, because I like hard copy. But my sister was like, "Oh no, I just do Kindle. I don't do it." But I like the feel of a book. And
I personally like to feel, touch,
yeah,
mark, and if I
yes.
want to,
Uh-huh.
do that. However, there are people that say, I don't need a bunch of books in my house.
Oh,
I
I
just
know,
don't want any
I
more
know.
books. And
Now that
then,
I live in a motorhome, so you'd think I wouldn't like books, but actually I have stacks of.
yeah, it's really important. And then, and
I have
even
another question for
audiobooks.
you. It's curious to me. Yeah, yes, audiobooks. Many people that are my friends love audiobooks. I know that's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
Tell me about authors that you work with, and what's it like for them to be a new author, and what's their reaction when they realize and they get it, what being a #1 top selling Amazon author feels like.
It is such a celebration. It is so exciting. And, but I think in our first couple of conversations, I said, we can get you because of all the resources, all the marketing that we put behind it. We can get you to #1 bestseller. But it's like having a diploma hanging on the wall behind you. If you don't do anything with what you learned from with that diploma,
Mhm.
it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Same way with getting that bestseller badge that you can get, #1 bestseller, and it's so exciting. If you don't talk about it, don't market it, don't say anything about it,
Mhm.
it's not going to serve the purpose of. And I say, are you dedicated to using this book as a tool? Are you dedicated to using that as your stepping stone for exposure, your showcasing of who you are? Because I also do a lot of Facebook Live and YouTube Live to make, to get the exposure. Some of my authors, when we go for during the launch period, along with their launch team, will do a number of interviews. Some of their videos those live interviews have had 500, 1,000 views. And it's pretty exciting, to see that, because each of those are sharing with somebody else that, oh, look at this amazing book that's being published.
Mhm.
So there's a lot
Mhm.
of tactics that go into it, but what better time to be living? In the face of COVID, in the face of all the unrest in our whole world, not just our country, the whole world, we have Zoom, we have Facebook, we have social media, we have the ability to connect with people just like this.
Right.
If this had happened, COVID or something like it had happened even 10 years ago, would we have had all the tool sets? We have our phones, we have everything. When you and I grew up, we didn't have all this kind of stuff. Most of us didn't even have computers,
That's
you
right.
know,
That's right.
you know?
And also a friend of mine who's a dear friend, and she's in her 80s, mid 80s. She was an author who had been rejected many times. The blessing we have now is we don't have to wait for someone to tell us that we're okay and our book's okay. And yes, we'll publish it. We can do it anyway. And with the marketing, we can really use, as you said, use this as an amazing tool to leverage our business. We
Yes.
don't have to have the approval of someone else to do a book now.
And that's true. And I do have a lot of people that have gone that route trying to get approved, and the discouragement and the time that passes, sometimes years,
Mm-hmm.
and still maybe rejections. And this way, if you know how to attract your ideal audience, just like with this whole web summit series that is taking place,
Mm-hmm.
each of us that are participating, that are speaking, this is a way that we are growing our own businesses, because we're getting our message out, and we have to really put ourselves out there for this.
Right.
you know for some of us, it's like, I can't speak in front of public, I just can't do that. And maybe this is a good way to get started, because you can't see your audience. But it's a good tool. We have the tools available to us. Let's utilize them and make use of them and grow and thrive because there's somebody. Every human being has treasured gifts the world is just waiting to experience. And if we share our treasured gifts, get it out to the world. There's somebody that needs to know what you do, what you offer. Somebody is waiting, and you typically that somebody turns into many somebodies.
Mhm. What I'm hearing you also share, Becky, is that they don't have to do it alone. They don't have to be in some corner of their home, stuck. You offer a really personal service with actually a team behind them to support them the whole way through the process and to actually from start to finish and then beyond, because once they do it once, I bet they do it again.
I have authors returning 6 and 7 times now.
Hmm.
And actually the best practices when you read all about publishing a book, they're saying don't be a one-hit wonder.
Hmm.
You know, just if you do one, do a series of ones, or do another book that expands on maybe one area of what was in the first book, and keep building on that. Because if somebody likes, we do, oftentimes I will take and re-upload the manuscripts into the publishing houses with updates. So, book one, you don't have the links to the other books. So you just re-upload it and it has the links. Be sure and check out our other books in the series and vice versa. So we do a lot of those kind of amazing things that um, will really showcase us as the experts that we truly are. And every one of us is an expert in some way.
Right. Well, I just reached out to our participants if there's any questions. We'll see if we've got any questions here. But I do want to take this time, just because I don't want to forget. I wanted you to just go ahead and possibly just tell us in a nutshell your offer for everyone today.
My offer is the 4 pillars of a story well told. And I believe that when we tell the story well, that we become an advocate, we become a way shower, we become a unifier, we become we are the pillar of attraction for those, and we connect people, we unite people together. Our tribes, we attract our tribes. And
Mm.
so I go into those 4 pillars, and actually it's a free offer right now. I'm in the almost finished putting the whole course together, so it'll
Oh,
start in November. So right now it's free, and it'll go up to a very low cost, four
I'm
step.
taking it.
It's a 4 step. It's not a huge course, but it really helps you understand how you can become that leader and write a story that is well crafted, but
Mhm.
become the advocate for your area of expertise, become the unifier, show the way to others for the things that they really really need, and it teaches how to convey our values, how to cultivate relationship through story.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the whole gist of that whole course. So right now it's just a PDF that you can download and read, but then we'll go into much more depth as the course as I launch the course on November 1st.
That's fabulous. So I believe Andrew will be able to post that for us. Probably have a link there.
I
that we
do. I supplied links somewhere along the way, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't have it right here.
Well, I know Andrew in the background is doing all these amazing things for us, so
Thank
we'll be
goodness
able to
for
post
Andrew.
that. And with that, any last thoughts? You've done so much for so many years for so many authors. Um, what can you just share with them as some parting thoughts of why they should just get that book out there? You just did it, but just your total heart, just spill it out here.
I think when we can share our shared stories with the world, it's just as transformational for us as it is for those that hear it. It's because there's something magical that happens when we put pen to paper
Hmm.
and we start truly crafting the stories that we can tell others that will impact others to see that there's hope, to see that there's a way, to
Yeah.
see that they don't have to stay in the place that they are, that they too can excel, they too can shine, they can climb out of it. But we are here as impactful leaders. The world needs a lot of impactful leaders right now. That's what each one of us can do. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to shine, keep that bushel basket over our light. We're here to bring our light and our wisdom to the world. And it needs to be one story at a time, one story at a time, to bring that expertise, bring your wisdom, bring you everything that you have. Every one of us have a story that can change the world.
Betsy, this was so informative, and we all so appreciate you. Jacqueline, the whole Build Your Business, your Consulting Business Now Summit appreciates your knowledge. You're going to be helping a lot of new budding authors, as well as maybe an author that hasn't written a book for a while. And
I have all kinds. I have a number. I have the brand new ones, and I have people that are coming back 6, 7 times, and I've had people that have used other means or tried to do it all themselves before and realized that they need to shine where they shine, and let me use my expertise to do what I do.
We thank you so much for
you.
being here today. Thank you again.
It's been my special pleasure. Thank you.
And Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I am. So thank you again, Becky. We appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here.